What if we told you that the division and derision all across the nation for decades has been driven by news organizations and their entertainment corporation cronies, and it turns out they're all a bunch of phonies? Now we know where the money went. We'll tell you, and we've got Ron Coleman, attorney at law, ready to explain why this is one of the biggest wins in rooting out media corruption we've ever seen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The sun is shining, and we are here declining to step away from the story of the day, and that is the Southern Poverty Law Center facing accusations, allegations, indictments, and all the rest from the DOJ and the FBI. Folks, all we ask as we dive deep into this one is click the like button, and we'll explain why many of the news organizations owned by the entertainment organizations, well, they made a lot of money. They made a lot of bank off of rank, untrue, nonsense stories they drove into the ears and the eyes of Americans as they propagandized the weakest minds among us. Out of Fox News, the Southern Poverty Law Center faces blowback from hate map targets after the DOJ has filed a fraud indictment. The Family Research Council, PragerU, Moms for Liberty, and others say the charges confirm years of ideological targeting. What's this about? Well, the DOJ has filed a fraud indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's prompting swift reaction from groups named on its hate map. This is getting real ugly real fast. The Southern Poverty Law Center has, according to USA Today, paid informants without donors knowing. And I would say this article from Will Carlos actually downplays this significantly. It's not just that they paid informants. Get ready, folks. Let's dive into the details, and we'll show you what's going on here. And we'll connect this with news organizations and entertainment companies in just a moment. It says the nation's top law enforcement officials, FBI Director Kash Patel and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, announced a slew of criminal charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center, a nonprofit research and advocacy organization, sure it is, that has worked for decades to investigate, report on, and combat all the baddies. We won't say them because they get us in trouble on YouTube, but they're the baddies, right? The charges allege that the SPLC's use of paid informants defrauded donors to the organization because the donors were not aware their money would be used for that purpose. Well, now, this kind of makes it just seem like they were like FBI light. They were just paying for informants, right? Well, hang tight. According to prosecutors, informants were paid large sums of money to infiltrate some of the nation's most infamous and dangerous extremist groups. This tactic, Blanche said at a news conference, was not, here's the quote that matters, was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. It goes on to allege that these, unbeknownst to donors, some of their donated money was being used to fund, and here's where we get into the nitty and gritty. It was being used to fund the leaders and organizers of some of the worst groups out there. Ron, before we get into the implications of this, the ramifications of it, and some thoughts from you, I want to go straight to your opinion when it comes to how this is being handled by the media. The press is trying, I think, to undress this and make it seem much less. But in reality, the funding of entire groups seems to have been manufactured by this. These groups didn't exist without these funds, it appears.
The SPLC is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. It's not the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Law enforcement has the prerogative under appropriate circumstances, which are not always observed. They're not always appropriate, but all things being equal, yes, informants can be paid, but the SPLC is not the FBI. It's not the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It's a tax-deductible organization, and donors have to be told what is being done with their money. So even if this were merely a case, which it's not, of paying informants, and it's far beyond that. That's not so. The SPLC isn't the same as law enforcement. So that dog won't hunt.
Ron, this is a huge deal because, I mean, just to give people an idea of the magnitude, remember that one of the things this group was involved in, apparently, allegedly, is the entire reason that Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden, says he got in to run to be president again.
Keep in mind, though, that everything Joe Biden ever said is likely to have been a lie.
You got me. The teleprompter said, I apologize. I should have seen that coming. Ron, so people understand, this is a group that set aside and declared certain other groups to be purveyors of hatred, of racism, and all kinds of terrible things. And it seems like some of those groups were being paid at the leadership levels by this group, the Southern Poverty Law Center. And then at the same time, there may have been coordination behind the scenes, or at least the news organizations were enjoying the news cycles covering this stuff as if it was real when it may have never been. And these groups that we all questioned online, Ron, like these guys with the sunglasses and the caps and the handkerchiefs, and you said, who are these losers? I mean, people were like, feds. No, it seems like they were being fed by the SPLC, right?
That, I think, remains an open question about the, what was it? The
Patriots something. I forget.
Patriot Front? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, they sure glow like feds. I still really can't get the way they dress and those haircuts. I got you, Kevin. He's enjoying it. Kevin, have we met before? I think this is the first time for us to be on the show together.
Oh, this is the second time, actually.
Second time. Okay.
Still a huge privilege, though.
Everyone who has ever been on a show with me will remember that I've asked that at least once, except, of course, one person who I never forget. You know who you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Hey, Ron.
So if we go to this, and you had shared this out, and I find this so fascinating because
look at that number.
Yeah, because the SPLC was maintained by the news organizations, by the intelligentsia of the West. This was these people held the orthodoxy of what was allowed to be believed. When it came to all of this, they were cited in every single report, both by the government and in the news organizations. And yet here we go. The SPLC maintains cash reserves of more than $822 million, much of which is stored in untaxed offshore bank accounts
Now,
to combat poverty and racism.
To be fair, because they're a 501c3, it would be untaxed even if it were being held in Alabama. But why would a charitable organization send money to a tax haven? I mean, isn't that weird?
It's very, very strange. And it begins to seem that this was a cog in the machine of putting out absolute nonsense, dividing Americans, using news organizations, which are largely owned by the entertainment corporations, using them against us, propagandizing us for decades, and creating strife and conflict where there would have been none otherwise.
Yeah, they were coordinating with a lot of people who consider themselves to be the people who decide who is going to get to say what, and they had, as you point out, Pro, they were working with major media companies to decide who got to express himself and who did not.
Yes, and who would be deplatformed and removed from the digital town square.
All the platforms, and also all the organizations, Anti-Defamation League, very, very big on censorship, and it was. And by the way, Unite the Right. Perhaps you heard about this event in Charlottesville.
Oh yeah.
It's beginning to look a lot like they set the whole thing up.
And so for those who are listening and you're trying to grasp just what this is, at a scope and scale that's unimaginable, and just think about if in your subdivision there was some group, some family decided they were going to begin gathering money to help defend, the neighborhood against theft, or against loitering or whatever. And then come to find out, they took the money from, all the neighbors and they paid for loitering or they paid for theft so that they could then prove to you, oh, you need us. Except in this case, it goes even beyond, because then they took that and they propagandized the whole nation with it, and they silenced anybody who said, wait a minute, I think you guys are actually the bad ones. Eric Erickson has this. I want to play this real quick. Lauren, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, can we agree that the Southern Poverty Law Center is generally supported by those that you would say are on the left side of the aisle?
Yes, except I think also they had institutional support to the degree that you really couldn't fight them for 20 years?
To be fair, I think Lauren is right. That support began to melt a few years ago. The FBI stopped coordinating with them.
Here's the point.
Of other. I mean, FBI doesn't need help from anyone to do it. It's especially it's censoring. But Lauren makes a good point. They were not considered fair brokers by anyone in the center or the right for the last 5 years or so.
Lauren, take us to point 2. What do you got?
The point I want to make, though, is that if what we are concerned about is that they were funneling money towards particular supremacist groups that we all know very well, it seems to me that that's where those groups originated. It's like they're just following an old pattern. So I don't know why we're necessarily so shocked.
Well, that's it. It's the more things change, the more they stay the same. But the other part of this too is that it's like not only did they influence media, they've had a death grip on academia, a death grip. So I used to, when I was a personal trainer, get into very spirited debates with a certain popular news commentary host. His sister would oftentimes quote these people as a mechanism of defending her point.
Kevin, are you about to tell us that you trained Anderson Cooper so that we can blame you for that? What?
No. Someone way more entertaining and charismatic.
Okay.
But yes, his sister could not fathom my existence.
You're a walking paradox, I tell you. Folks, here is Eric Erickson posting this, just showing us the level of corruption that existed. And I want you all to consider how much did the ratings increase for CNN and MS Now and ABC News and NBC News and CBS News because there was a fake Godzilla. There was an evil empire out there lurking in the shadows, as proven by the Southern Poverty Law Center. America still had a deep and evil cancer inside of it. And all of these people were tuned in, glued into their TVs, listening to this. And it turns out they were paying for the fake out the whole time. Here is a clip from Eric Erickson talking about what he had to go through because of the SLPC.
According to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations Affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club.
I think that'll do, eh? I think that's the potpourri of things that'll get you knocked off YouTube.
That last one is such a mouthful, it could be an anime title.
Well said.
Let me just address something, though, that
Please.
It's easy for us to forget. It is true that we're not shocked at what they were doing. What we're shocked at is that they are perhaps going to be held accountable.
Yes.
That's the news story here, is that the jig may finally be up for them. Imagine that.
Well, let's talk about that, Ron, because you're an expert in this area. You sent me this way. It says, remember this about the lawsuit Gavin McInnes brought against SPLC for defamation. Well, there is news. And you went all the way back to 2020 when you said, no development since I tweeted this. Judge has still not ruled on the motion by SPLC to discuss the defamation lawsuit by Gavin McInnes filed in early 2019. This is a group that was making people not only be deplatformed and canceled and all that sort of thing, but they put a scarlet letter on you that was worse than anything imaginable. And you were persona non grata in society if you held it.
Well, I mean, certainly when he means you, it doesn't mean Ron Coleman. He means one.
Right.
Interestingly, although, I mean, my representation of Gavin McInnes in my lawsuit against SPLC probably got me kicked out of a law firm. I mean, they ended up using something else as an excuse, but this was the bell ringer. We sued SPLC for destroying Gavin's career at the time. I mean, it is not, look, the guy makes a nice living, but it's nothing like what it was in terms of the opportunities and the platforms that he was on before the Unite the Right stuff and the way they absolutely brought down the Proud Boys. We sued for defamation in 2019 And that tweet that I wrote in 2020 saying we're waiting for a ruling from the judge, we didn't get a ruling until I went to the appellate court and filed a writ of mandamus requesting that they order the judge to rule in 2025. The judge sat on, can you remember, it's very easy to just grant the motion to dismiss that the SPLC brought. They could have just brought it, they didn't. They could have just denied it, but he couldn't because it was our case was too strong. Finally, he ruled, he dismissed some of the claims with prejudice, some of the claims without prejudice. We filed an amended complaint at the end of last year. They made obviously another motion to dismiss. It's now April, and we're waiting for the judge to rule again. But I got to know the SPLC very well while drafting that complaint and researching it and finding out how they were coordinating with other organizations and institutions and platforms. It is nasty business.
Ron, if you had to speculate, we'll put this officially in speculation, how well coordinated was this with news organizations, with other political movements and PACs and that sort of thing?
The SPLC is one of the many arms of the Democratic National Committee. It is an entirely politicized nonprofit. That's not unusual. So is the ACLU. So is the Anti-Defamation League. So is the NAACP. That in itself is not all that unusual. But they were really the ones who were, in many respects, really out there. And as they still had a residual level of credibility and trust in academia and with some police departments. You will still to get on their hate map. Charlie Kirk was on their hate map,
right? And we've got Culture Casino out in the chat saying that his exit from this life probably has something to do with the designation. I don't know that to be true. It'd be hard to prove that out, but it's definitely part of the calculation you have to think through.
It might not be hard. To at least infer a connection.
Right.
But yeah, these are really genuinely bad guys. They didn't care about the facts, and they have always considered themselves to be immune from any sort of pushback. There have been a couple of times when they stepped on third rails within the left and have had to climb down from things. But what they did to my client Gavin McInnes, they utterly destroyed the Proud Boys. Destroyed them. The Proud Boys became the Proud Boys were really founded as and functioned as essentially a silly version of the Boy Scouts for the 21st century. And they became synonymous with Hitler Youth, which was just preposterous. Right. A lot of people were ruined by the SPLC.
Entire lives, yeah.
It's not the subject matter of this indictment, but it's all related.
Michelle, as we look at the past 20 years or so, and we see how the 24-hour news cycle has functioned on cable news, but also on the network news, they benefited greatly by these fake paid-for groups. And it's not that they've always been fake, but maybe their continued existence was made possible by this group that was supposed to be fighting them. Michelle, what do you think about these cable news organizations that lived and thrived off of this, and the detriment that it caused with especially older people who believed, we still haven't defeated this. The most susceptible among us, watching every night, and they're, no, not you, Ron, you're not that old, you're not a dinosaur. The assisted living folks, or the grandmothers, the grandfathers of the world who said, oh my, it's dark and terrible. You've got to watch CNN, honey. You won't believe it. And it was all funded for and paid for. It's theater.
Well, are we assuming that they knew they were doing that, or are we just assuming they were happy to get the news that they gave them?
That's a line that I
because there's a
I
difference.
suspect one and I believe the other.
Okay, because if they just took the information that this group gave them and ran with it, well then it is wrong. I mean, that's just kind of more the almighty dollar. People want what sells, and unfortunately, you see this on YouTube. You see this everywhere: negativity, fear, things like that. It just gets clicks. It gets viewed, unfortunately. So that is wrong. But that is more kind of agreed, and oh yeah, this helps push our narrative along, and we'll also get more views this way. If it's the other, where they knew that there was money involved as far as stirring some of this up, and they went with it, you've just entered into total evil category. And I know that word gets used way too much, I feel like, on this platform, but it does apply sometimes. And if you are genuinely stirring up strife, hate, anxiety, that is evil. That is morally wrong to do to a country and to a group of people. So I'm going to hope it's the first, but like you said, is anyone going to be surprised if it's the latter?
Yeah, and the propaganda that we're going through and have been going through is just so incredible. And I'm like Ron. I never thought we would really hold people accountable for this. So I'm pleased with that. I look at what's going on with some of the gerrymandering and some of the wording that's happening with how do we put this in some of the recent elections taking place across the country. And I see the propaganda happening again. I hope that we can be savvy enough to defeat when people are using misinformation and untruths as a weapon against the American people. I hope that we can be savvy enough to defend our free speech and our freedom to find out what's really going on, the transparency and freedom of the press. I'm deeply disturbed by what I see in California with this Nick Shirley law, where they're making it a finable offense to uncover corruption if you're an independent journalist. I mean, this stuff is crazy and it won't hold up. But Ron, what are the next battlefields going forward now?
Well, they've already knocked out this law in California where they tried to, they were going to tell ICE how they have to identify themselves and like all this crap. And that was thrown out by a court today. I mean, that's not exactly our topic, but the number of battlefields is really almost endless. Yes, Bruce is 100% right. And not only did many donate to the Southern Poverty Law Center, people were really like, it was in the super friends category for a lot of people. And, I lost friends. In addition to losing a partnership in a law firm, I lost friends for suing the Southern Poverty Law Center, who people just, it was just an emotional connection that people had. How could you sue the good? These are the best guys, the good guys. These are the guys who are against the Klan. Ron, you're not in favor of the Klan, are you? So the battlefields really, there are too many to name, Pro. It's really it's happening in every single court across the country. I mean, it's amazing that they got a federal judge in Atlanta who has been, ruling on this ballot stuff the right way. This absolutely audacious lawsuit that was brought by Norm Eisen and friends, claiming that Fulton County has a right to know how and why the FBI wants their the ballots. Is just so crazy. I saw another super chat that was directed to me, and I want to make sure I answer it before I let
me see if I get that up there for you, Ron. Let's see. Who's this from? Let me see. Here it is. Specifically for you, Ron. Patrick Anyway for 5. Question for Ron. Was SPLC founder Morris Dees responsible for this, or was it after his departure?
Morris Dees was a grifter from Go. This is well documented. It was well known within the civil rights community. So my wife, Jane Coleman, the lawyer and writer for Legal Insurrection, used to be an in-house lawyer at the Anti-Defamation League back when they were against anti-Semitism. And she told me everyone knew that SPLC was a racket, that it was, I mean, to call it a nonprofit, you take a look at their 990s and see what kind of money people were being paid. And these are people who are living in Alabama, okay? You know what it costs to live in Alabama? You know Pro better than I do, okay? Because I'm a New York Jew. But
are you claiming I'm in Alabama? Keep going, Ron.
well, you're a lot. It's fine. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right?
We love our Alabamian viewers out there.
So it's a really good question. Morris Dees was a crook, but this business of actually paying the hate groups themselves to keep them in business, I'm not aware of anyone claiming that Morris Dees was into self-enrichment. This was a business for him from go. That's well established. And my friend and college roommates, my late college roommate's brother, David Montgomery, wrote a fantastic, and who is not a conservative, wrote a fantastic article that I have posted many times on X about the Southern Poverty Law Center and the nature of the racket that it has been for a very, very long time.
Ron, if it could be found that they were funding one of these groups that engaged something like targeted harassment or something more serious, could they then be found to have been, for instance, financing a terrorist group?
Well, I don't know that any of those groups. Most of these groups are boogeymen. They don't really actually do anything.
They march a lot, but they don't.
They march a lot. They post a lot, and they attract the attention of certain loons in right-wing social media and podcasts. But I don't think they're actually terrorists. And it is interesting that the SPLC is not accused of sending any money to the Proud Boys, who they would consider to be terrorists. I think look, the main thing the SPLC is a law firm. It's a gigantic law firm. It's the Roach Motel. Okay.
The best and brightest, Ron, not there.
I'm sorry?
The best and brightest, not exactly at the SPLC.
Well, let's put it this way. Not the best, but some very, very bright people got in and are still in on the grift, and the light has not been turned on by the Justice Department.
Ron, while we've got you here, I'd like to bring this to your attention because I think it actually runs parallel with what we're talking about. Virginia, This is out of ABC 7 News. It says, Virginia judge blocks redistricting referendum from being certified. It was declared unconstitutional. What is that? Well, the New York Times shows right here this new map. Says Virginians approved a new congressional map on Tuesday that would aggressively gerrymander the state in the Democrats' favor. The party now holds 6 of the state's 11 seats in the U.S. House. But the new map could allow the party to win 10 of them. And essentially, this thing won by 1% of the vote and was going to take away all but one of the seats of Republicans. And the way that it did so is, folks, if you can see this image, you see how every one of these districts barely goes up into the D.C. area, just enough to make sure that all of them reach into a population center and control everybody outside of D.C.
Oh, look at that ninth! Look at that ninth district.
Right. They won. So, Ron, what's amazing though is that when this was put on the ballot, literally on the ballot it said, "Do you support making elections more fair?" I mean, this is the kind of propaganda we've been living under, and it was allowed to exist. And here's another case of, well, maybe we actually got a win where somebody said, even this finally is too far.
The cynicism is endless. And the mistake they made here is that you can draw your congressional lines however you want, but in fact, Virginia is a 50-50 state. And that means that there's going to be a judge. If you bring the lawsuit in the right county, there's going to be a judge who is going to give you an injunction.
It's amazing. It's amazing to look how they did that, where it's literally just tentacles going up to the DC area so that DC controls all of Virginia. Pulling Hollyweird to the sensible center, the mainstream middle where money is made is not easy, but folks, you make it easy to make videos each and every day because sharing time with you is a great honor, and we never take it lightly. An attitude of gratitude every single time we have the chance to shine with you. Until the next time, we only ask that you click that like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, don't worry about paying any kind of tuition for this free class and how entertainment works. You are on scholarship. Highest IQ on the internet, that's you for sure. Until the next time we have the opportunity to spend time together, folks, we just ask that you keep learning, keep growing, and as ever, keep having fun.